Hi everybody, I hope that you're all doing really well. So today I am back to talk about the books that I bought in the month of October. Once again, back with another book haul. These book hauls are meant to keep me accountable, but I think they're just encouraging me to buy more and more books. Hooray! There seems to be quite a seasonal theme to a lot of the books that I've bought. They're very applicable for the months of October, November, December. So getting straight into those books, the first thing that I hauled in October was Angelika Frankenstein Makes Her Match by Sally Thorne. You'll know the name Sally Thorne if you have read The Hating Game. That was a contemporary romance that I read earlier this year. It was an enemies to lovers romance and I quite enjoyed it. I would say that was probably like a 3.5 star read for me. I did have some issues with it, but I really liked the main couple. I really liked their banter back and forth. And so when I heard that she had this new offering that was completely different, that was more Halloweeny, it was more historical romance, but with her trademark snark and banter between all of the different characters, and it's a retelling of Frankenstein, or a reimagining of Frankenstein, which is one of my favourite classics of all time, I just had to pick it up and see what I thought of it. Currently I am around about 2/3, I would say, of the way through this book. It was one that I was actually wanting to read ahead of Halloween in order to review it alongside another Halloween romance that I had read. That book is one that I also hauled this month and I'll be talking about shortly. However, as I mentioned in my wrap up, I did end up getting ill in October, so that did put my reading of this a little bit slightly behind. Definitely an interesting one, and when I say that it's a historical romance, it's definitely like historical in terms of time period, but in terms of like the mannerisms of the characters, they feel very modern. So that's definitely interesting. I think I will have some thoughts by the end of this. A book that I didn't actually haul myself, I was actually gifted it by my housemate Vivi, was the paperback edition, though I don't actually currently have that paperback edition, so I'm just going to hold up the hardback because she owns that. She actually went to London to see Stanley Tucci talk about his book Taste, and while she was there, I think as part of her ticket she was given a free copy of the paperback, but as I say, she already had this hardback, so she gave the paperback to me. I really like Stanley Tucci. He seems like a very lovely guy, very knowledgeable about food. I've not actually watched his Italy series, but I hear nothing but good things. I don't know how much I have to say about this one. It was something that I was gifted. Looking forward to dipping into it and trying some of the recipes. Do let me know if you've got any recommendations from this book. Next up, at the beginning of October, I actually decided to challenge myself to walk from the city centre, Oxford city centre, all the way back to my house. It's something that is definitely doable. It's all pretty much on flat ground and it only took a couple of hours. I just, in the year and a half that I've lived here, have never done the full journey. But of course, starting from town, I couldn't go into town without going into Blackwell's and Waterstones, and of course I picked up a couple of books on the way. The first of those books being The Dance Tree by Kiran Millwood Hargrave. And oh no, the light's getting in the way. This is a historical fiction book which is talking about the dancing plague of 1516. My apologies, 1518. No. The very high-tech solution for our problem was to hang a towel over my window. So yes, this book recounts the dancing plague of 1518 in Strasbourg, where members of the city just spontaneously started dancing, and they kept on dancing until they died. This is something that I do know like a little bit about, but I've never really researched in depth, and I actually do have another book which is non-fiction. This book, A Time to Dance, A Time to Die, which I feel would pair really, really well with this as a non-fiction fiction pairing, and I'd quite like to read both of them back to back and do a video on them. This obviously is going to focus on this history, but talking about it more from a human perspective, and probably there are going to be some characters that we meet in here, but I actually don't know too much about what Kiran Millwood Hargrave's take is on this history and the ways that it's twisted and worked into a narrative. Literally just the concept of this was enough to entice me and make me want to read it. So if you have any thoughts about this, I would love to hear from you. On that same trip into Blackwell's, I picked up The Haunting Season, Ghostly Tales for Long Winter Nights, which is a short story collection, a haunted short story collection, telling some fun spooky tales for the season, and it's written by a bunch of different historical fiction authors that you may have heard of. In this we've got stories from Bridget Collins, Imogen Hermes Gower, Kiran Millwood Hargrave again, Andrew Michael Hurley, Jess Kidd, Elizabeth McNeil, Natasha Pulley and Laura Purcell, some of whom I have read books from and some that I haven't, so hopefully the ones that I haven't read from, this might entice me to read some more of their work. This I actually picked up because it was the book club pick for my in real life book club. However, the book club is today and I actually can't attend. I've never been able to attend any of these sessions because I've always seemed to have like a committee meeting or rehearsal. One of these days I will read a book for this book club and actually be able to go and talk to everybody about it, but today is not that day. Next book that I picked up whilst I was journeying around the charity shops in my local area, as I like to do, was How to Be a Tudor, A Dawn to Dusk Guide to Everyday Life by Ruth Goodman. Now you may recognise this author because she also wrote How to Be a Victorian, which I read earlier this year and really enjoyed. This series I think constitutes a really good like introduction Introduction to Reading Non-Fiction History, Introduction to Different Time Periods, where Ruth Goodman is taking you through like the daily activities of different people, how they slept, what they ate, how they dress. But the unique twist to this that makes it different to a lot of other history books that are on a similar kind of tact is that Ruth Goodman likes to experiment with a lot of these different rituals. She will actually do them herself and then report back on her experience with them, which I don't tend to see a lot of other historians talking about. I enjoyed the Victorian one. I think I'm going to even more enjoy the Tudor one because this is more my time period. As I said earlier, there was another book that I wanted to read alongside Angelika Frankenstein, and that book was The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston. This, instead of being a historical romance, is actually a contemporary romance, but it has a little bit of a ghostly twist. We've got this main character of Florence, who is actually a ghostwriter. She's been writing multiple books for a prolific romance writer. However, she's at the last book of her contract and she's hit a bit of a roadblock. She's recently had a breakup, and as a result of that, she doesn't feel like there's any point anymore. She feels like romance is dead. She can't possibly write a romantic ending anymore. Where she may have had a little bit more leeway with her previous editor, there is now a new editor in town. She goes to meet this new editor, little cactus gift in hand, and it turns out to be Benji Ander, who is pretty no nonsense and is pretty firm on the fact that she must hit her deadline, which is tomorrow. And she's still not finished the book. And so obviously Florence is panicking. She can't possibly think of an ending to this book, and she doesn't want to risk the legal implications of not finishing. After a family incident, Florence ends up going home, at home a few states away, to be with her family during a difficult time, when she gets a knock on the door, and it turns out to be Benji Ander, but something isn't right. She realizes pretty quickly that the Benji Ander that she's seeing at her door is actually a ghost, and this is how she discovers that her new editor has actually died. And for some reason, neither of them know why, he is at her door. Clearly, between the two of them, they have to work out what his unfinished business is. But oh no, is she being charmed by this very handsome ghost? What's going to happen? Who knows? And so yeah, I thought that this would be a really good Halloween pick, Halloween romance alongside Angelika Frankenstein, and that it would be really fun to review both of them together. I had managed to read this one, but unfortunately, as I said, I'm still about 2/3 of the way through Angelika Frankenstein, so that video is obviously not going to go up for Halloween. And I mean, I'm actually filming this on the 3rd of November, so you know, Halloween has been gone, but hopefully we are still in the spooky season time. I will try and get both books read and the video up before it gets too much into the Christmas season. A sneaky book purchase that I made at Blackwell's when I was at an author talk was What is History Now? How the Past and the Present Speak to Each Other, edited by Helen Carr and Susannah Lipscomb. This is a book that I've been wanting to pick up for a while, but I was wanting to wait until it was in paperback. And it is a collection of different essays by prominent historians, and this works as a modern follow-up to E.H. Carr's What is History, which is a really famous book. If you are a history student, you have probably read this. But of course, a lot of the questions that academic historians are actually asking now are very different to what they were asking 60, 70 years ago. I can't quite remember when E.H. Carr's came out. And so in here we have different essays such as how can we write the history of empire? Can and should we queer the past? Why does history deserve to be at the movies? How can we recover the lost lives of women? So many questions to do with diversifying our history, ways that we look at our past mistakes, things that have been traditionally neglected in our history writing. In here you've got essays from lots of different famous historians such as Peter Frankopan, Alex von Tunzelmann, Murray Rubin, so many different authors. And yes, you know, as a history graduate, it's definitely one that I've had on my radar for quite a while, and I'm really looking forward to digging into this one. Skipping away from some of the Halloween reads that I've had recently and moving more towards the Christmas, we're slowly but surely getting there. A book that I found in a charity shop was An English Christmas, edited by Julius Norwich. And this basically is just a little collection of lots of different authors, like short stories, chapters, and poetry to do with Christmas. As the title suggests, it is all English authors. It goes in a chronological order of the Christmas season, going from Advent all the way up to Epiphany on January the 6th. In here we've got writing from Jane Austen, from Charles Dickens, of course, Laurie Lee, William Barnes, J.R.R. Tolkien, William Shakespeare, and so many more. I always like to have a couple of Christmassy books on hand each year, so this is definitely very welcome. The last two books that I have to show you, I do kind of think about them together. They're very similar in terms of size. I picked them up at the same time, and they're both non-fiction, just little dinky non-fiction books. First off, we have Unfortunate Ends on Murder and Misadventure in Medieval England by Soren Lilly. For a size comparison to a normal hardback, look at how diddy that little thing is. This is one that was actually on my anticipated releases video for October to December. I saw it in Waterstones and I just had to snap it up there and then. I didn't realise it was going to be so small. From bizarrely fatal accidents to grisly murders, Unfortunate Ends takes a magnifying glass to 12 deaths plucked from the medieval coroner's rolls. Here are the everyday people of the Middle Ages, not kings and queens, but rarely seen teenage clerks, drunken wives, short-lived students on crime sprees, and men with particularly fatal preferences for pissing. The hows, whys, whys and wherefores of their demises, let them live once more, certain to change our conception of medieval England forever. And yeah, I just thought that was really fun. I thought that maybe something I could do for non-fiction November is like read one of these a day. Instead of the 12 days of Christmas, you got the 12 days of murder. Hooray! And then the last book I have to show you today is What Reuters Read, 35 Reuters on their favourite books, edited by Pandora Sykes. This is one that I'm actually around about 67 pages into, so I've started this one already and really enjoying it. You know, I can't resist a book about books, a book about why reading is important. As the title suggests, this is lots of different prominent authors talking about their favourite books and why they love them so much. As Pandora Sykes says in her introduction, this is not meant to be a book report, it is meant to be very personal reflections on why a book is so important, how it's influenced them in terms of their reading, in terms of general life, but also in terms of how it affected their writing. Like with Unfortunate Ends, my plan for this was that I was going to read one of these a day. However, after reading the first one, I was just so enthused. You know, like I say, I love anything that is to do with the joy of reading. And so I just found it very Moorish and I just kept reading. So hopefully I will be finishing this one very, very soon. So there we go. Those are all of the books that I've picked up recently. You would think on the lead up to Christmas, and also because I do have a move imminently, that I would slow down my book buying, which I am trying to do. However, I know that in a week or so, I'm going to be meeting up with Shannon and Sylvie. Shannon at 155 Books and Sylvie at the TBR Diaries. They are coming to Oxford. And you know what happens when booktubers meet up? We go to bookshops, of course. So I'm trying to restrain myself up until that point, but I have no promises on what my behaviour is going to be like at that time. I cannot be held responsible for my actions. Do let me know if you've read any of the books that I've spoken about, what your thoughts were about them. Alternatively, let me know about anything that you've picked up recently that you've really enjoyed. I would love to hear from you. I hope you're having a fantastic, fantastic day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thanks. Bye.